Bonjour, Kinamagi and Nene Ireland Indigenacast, and welcome to this production of Social Studies Explorer. Tonight's episode, the First Continental Congress. So, discussing the First Continental Congress, we know that the meeting was called to protest tolerable acts. And because it brought in people from multiple Congress colonies, we called it the First Continental Congress. Part of this plan included a Declaration of Rights. As an association was planned out and formed, and they also planned to boycott certain products. Some of the key words include freedom of assembly, the right to meet with others, which had been hindered under the Intolerable Acts, a militia, a unit of soldiers that began in towns and villages, and Minutemen, special members of the militia, were supposed to be ready in a minute to fight. The key concept of the First Continental Congress was unity, join or die, which basically implied that either we work together or we fail. And if you're one of the now known as founding fathers, failure would have been a death sentence. We'll come back and talk about this page in just a moment. Some information on the First Continental Congress. Delegates to the Congress included colonial leaders such as Samuel Adams, John Adams, Patrick Henry, and George Washington. Many different viewpoints were represented at the Congress. Some people wanted to break away completely from Britain, while others wanted to find a way to get along. One of the decisions made of the Congress was to endorse the Suffolk Reserves. These were resolutions written by Joseph Warren and passed in Massachusetts. They declared the Intolerable Acts illegal and called for a boycott of British goods and trade. Paul Revere carried these historic documents to Philadelphia from Boston. The Congress also passed a petition called the Declaration and Resolves of the First Continental Congress. This described the rights of the colonists and their grievances with Britain. In this document, the Congress stated that Parliament had the power to regulate colonial trade, but not the power to tax the colonies arbitrarily and without the colonists having representatives in Parliament. Remember, no taxation without representation. One of the most important actions of the Congress was the formation of a Continental Association, which was in charge of enforcing the boycott. Following the meeting of the Congress, this association assumed the leadership of the colonies. The delegates as a whole were not ready to call for independence, but were determined to uphold their rights. And they agreed to meet again on the 10th of May, 1775, if the King and Parliament failed to respond to their petition. And we'll talk about that page momentarily, too. So let's go back up here. What you're going to do today is a little bit of independent study. You're going to Google information on the First Continental Congress. When did it meet and where? What was the purpose? Who was involved? And what was accomplished? You may use the document and the video that we just talked about to put it all together. And then I also want you to look at this document here. What do these phrases mean? Now, this is more of a self-check. I want you to tell me what does it mean, and then you can look on the back side of your packet for the answers. There will be a Google form option that will only include the questions on the First Continental Congress. This page with its answer key will not require you to write it in there because you can just look at the answers on the back. Hopefully this little bit of independent study will trigger some further exploration, which is always very important as learners for you to be able to find an interest and go with it. If you have any questions, reach out to me at mireland@sagchipschool.net. Have a Minagishigad, Minwa, Bamapi.